just for those who may not know, maybe they're just getting started, explain who you are and what Deal Machine is.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people they want to get into real estate investing just like I did. I was kind of motivated in high school. I noticed these kids had these nice cars, right? And I was like, what do their parents know that my parents don't? And so I realized like many of them had businesses. So I started reading business books and I read The 4 Hour Work Week and I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That told me like if you invest in real estate, like the stocks can go up and down, but you buy real estate right, it actually you can create value the same way that Nike shoes actually will take nylon, they'll buy it for $2, then they'll pay somebody to put it together into a shoe or a machine perhaps, and they sell it to you for $200, right? So they actually create value. So if you find a rundown house and you add materials to it, new drywall, new paint, new flooring, you can create more than $200. You can create possibly $100,000. So if you don't have the money to do that, like you could borrow the money to do that and still make quite a bit of money. But it all hinges on finding a rundown house that somebody has owned for a long time. They've like lived there for a long time. Um, and they all of a sudden have something in their life that makes them want to sell it. And for my first house, I mean, the guy had a tarp on his roof for 5 years. And then he had like a surgery and he couldn't cut the grass anymore. And like that was the last straw. So I bought his house for $4,000, fixed it up for $65,000. It was a small house, but we got a new roof, new everything inside, about 1,000 square foot house. And then it was worth $130,000, right? So the money I borrowed to fix it up, was paid off as soon as I got like a 30-year mortgage on that property, put that thing together, got the mortgage, paid off the debt. And then I was left over with, 40,000 plus dollars in my pocket and a cash flowing rental property. So along the way of finding that house, though, everybody said, go look for rundown houses. And I was writing them down and uh, I was just writing them down, right? I wasn't getting the mail out because that was like a whole nother step. And I drove by a house that was being worked on, but not by me. And I was like, that was my deal. How could you, what happened? How'd they get that deal? And turned out, another investor bought it before I even sent out mail. So I created an app on my phone that let you pin the house and it would send out mail to the owner. So that was 8 years ago. I think most people come to Deal Machine now for the data. We grew like 44% this year. Because if you're not mailing, you're probably wanting to call the person or text the person. So we put really, really good contact data in the app and matched it to the properties. And then you got that included with your subscription where, before it used to cost, 10 cents to look that up. And so that was a game changer and why I think a lot of people come to Deal Machine now. So that's kind of, who I am. I definitely was started off just trying to get into real estate investing, but ended up making a tool that's helped people close 10,000 deals in all 50 states.
Yeah, man, that's so incredible. So when I first started, Deal Machine was just getting started. Like I remember when you guys launched, right? So to look back on then and how big it is now, it's just amazing. Was that the plan from the beginning? Like did you plan on adding all of this different, these different tools and for it to become as big as it is?
No, I just started out for myself. It was just a tool for myself. It didn't look very user friendly, actually. In fact, we were just talking about this today. It wasn't even on the App Store, but I went to a local meetup and this woman named Brittany Wicks came from Texas to Indianapolis once a month to buy 30 properties for her turnkey uh, company that she worked for. They provided turnkey rentals.
Yeah.
So they needed deals all the time so they could sell these rentals. And she saw what I had created and she casually said that she'd spend $1,000 to try any new marketing, anything possible that could give her a possible edge, right? Because I mean, they're doing it at a pretty high level.
Yeah.
$1,000 was really nothing. Stuff certainly worth the edge, right? So I was like, my jaw dropped. I was like, I didn't try to sell this to you. I was just showing you what I was doing. But I figured I better get that on the app store so she can pay me $1,000, basically what I thought. So I had to come up with a name. And at my 9 to 5 job at the time, if I sold something, my boss would say, "Oh, David, he's a deal machine. Good job, David." So that's where I got the name for the app. Thought it made sense because we're doing real estate deals. And then I went to 99 Designs and had a logo created, and they kind of crowdsource a lot of designers, give you a bunch of options, and you just pick the top one, and that's your logo. So it's actually how it came together fairly quickly on that side and put it on the App Store. So again, it was just for me. But once that happened, I was like, this, I think this could be bigger than me. But yeah, I'd worked on it for like 6 months before that conversation even happened. So originally it was just for me.
Wow, that's so cool. So you mentioned earlier that you bought that house for 4 grand, put, like 60K in it. You use it as a rental, you said? Is that what it ended up being?
Yeah, yeah, I still own it today. It's rented for 1,300 a month.
Oh, that's really cool. So most
Yeah.
people who's just getting started, the first thing they want to do is wholesale. So what did you get into real estate just for rentals? Was that your purpose and like your goal?
Yes. Yes, it was. My boss had 5 rental properties, and I told you I was reading those books, right? And
Yeah.
so I knew that time was on my side for investing. So all my um, I saved as much as 40% of my salary, try to put that in my Roth IRA. And once that was full, I'd spill it over to save it elsewhere, right? Put it in other like retirement accounts or just even just stock market, retail brokerage account. Because I knew the more I invested, the better off and the faster I'll be, able to build wealth. And it just all started with starting early. So I was like heavily into and tuned into investing, but I didn't really understand real estate. The guy I worked for had 5 rental properties, and I was like, why don't you do the stock market? And he was like, well, the stocks go up and down. And at the time, mine were down. So I was like, oh, I understand. He's like, if you buy the real estate correctly and you manage it well, it'll always produce that cash flow to allow him. He wanted to retire by the age of 40. So that's what kind of helped make it click. And so, yeah, from the get go, I was just looking for real estate deals that would cash flow, and none would. But that's how I kind of searched a level deeper and found out, well, I need to go off market.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
so I started looking for deals on my own, and I didn't really know about wholesaling. Yeah, that wasn't anything that I like would have set out to do. But then once I made the app, I mean, a ton of people, 80% of the people using DealMachine are doing wholesaling. So they
yeah.
look for the houses the same way that I was looking for my own deals.
Oh, that's cool. And you talk about you mentioned those two books, 4 Hour Work Week, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I see the books behind you there. Are you still like an avid reader? Do you read?
Yeah, I read about 10 pages a day is what I've been doing. So it's like 12 to 15 books a year. This is my stack from 2022. I believe I've got two more stacks just like it over here in the other room.
What are you reading right now?
I actually just finished up Sell the Way You Buy.
Okay.
And
Who wrote
so
that?
it was a guy, I forget his name, but he was actually like in charge of a sales division at Salesforce.
Okay.
So they were doing more enterprise sales. But like, his big thing was like all these really common tactics and cold emails, et cetera, they would try to do at the end of the year, especially to like hit that quota. But he realized he was getting inundated as a consumer by the same type of tactics, and they weren't working on him, right? It was
Mhm.
like he was just mass deleting these emails that he was getting from other people. And he's like, shit, why is my team doing this too? So he goes through, what they kind of did instead and how they try to sell the way you buy. It's like think about the things that he does buy, and try to replicate that in their sales process.
Nice. I'm gonna have to put that on my list. I read
Yeah, that's
like
good.
8 pages a day at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I
What are you
find
reading right now?
what am I reading right now? I'm actually reading The Circle of Fire. You ever heard of the Four Agreements?
Mm-mm.
So
What
the
is that?
Four Agreements is by Don Miguel. I don't even remember his full name, but it's a spiritual book. It goes back to like the old civilizations in Mexico and the way that they lived. It's really good though, for your spirit. So that's what I'm reading right now. Um, so as far as Deal Machine goes, David, I mean, you guys are just, it seems like every time I turn around, you guys are adding something new, you know? I don't know if you can, I mean, I'm sure you can get better, but right now you guys are leading in software. I've been using your dialer, the everything is good. I mean, I can't complain at all. Are you seeing a lot of people saying that? Like, are you getting a lot of applause?
we've grown 44% this year. And it's all due to those things that we added with the contact info. And then, 6 months of that, people were exporting all these leads. So we provide them the ability to make calls in the actual dialer. So thank you for saying that. I'm hearing it a lot. It's great to see that in the results as well. It's been a good time, and it's one thing to just add stuff. You got to add stuff without making it complicated.
Yeah,
We've fallen into some pitfalls before where we would just add everything every customer asked for, and then it kind of became like a Frankenstein, right? So we really
yeah,
kind of pare things down, keep it simple. And I think the last couple of things we added have really been like true innovations, like done in a thoughtful way, and so they've been received well. Thanks
yeah.
for saying.
You're welcome. That's what I was going to say. I feel like that would have been, if I was you guys, my biggest fear is like adding too much. So I think you guys have done it perfect.
You want to hear a big mistake we made?
Oh, of course.
So remember how I said we started out driving for dollars?
Mm-hmm.
Well, then we spent a lot of time. We were like, hey, this works really well. I was a beginner at the time and made sense to me. I was like, man, we should make a system for other people that are more advanced investors to go hire drivers of dollars. And so we built out quite an extensive, system for recruiting and training people to go drive for dollars for you, and then
Yeah.
managing them as well. It just really it just fell flat on its face, that part of it especially. And the big reason why I think is advanced investors were never driving for dollars. They were never hiring people to drive for dollars in the
Yeah.
first place. And so you want to help people do what they're already trying to do rather than change behavior. Is that like
Okay.
you want to build something that would require a behavior change? Does that make sense?
Yeah, you want to channel the behavior, not create it.
You want to make it easier,
Yeah.
exactly. You make
Yeah.
it easier to do what people are already doing.
Yeah. That's how do you like, when you made a mistake, you know, what how do you guys fix that mistake and keep going? Like that is your success because Deal Machine has been up and down throughout the years, but you guys have been going up for the past few. So how were you guys able to keep going?
Well, you don't want to make the same mistakes again that you already made. So when we make a big mistake, we really have a retrospective at a minimum, which is like a meeting where everybody comes in. They're like, "Hey, what's going well? What's not going well? What are the reasons? What are the issues that we had?" And then it's my job as the person who's been here the longest to like continue to remind people of mistakes we've made. Now that it's like 4 or 5 years down the road, it's easy to forget that stuff.
Yeah.
So I really feel like it's having the retrospective, writing it down, and then having good continuity in your team so that they all remember exactly why we made those mistakes. So our team, we've had a really good retention rate. Our average tenure here is like 5 years, but we've only hired 6 years ago. So
Yeah.
it wasn't always that good, but the people that have been on our team, they actually have been here for a while. And so that makes it easier on my job because I don't have to remind people or explain, hey, we tried this, it didn't work for this reason, because everyone else here pretty much knows that stuff. So I'd say as a leader of a company, it's really important to work on your culture and retention rate so that people do, remember that stuff that didn't work out.
Yeah, man. That's a lot of value right there. That's so true. Do you see yourself always being the owner of Deal Machine?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna die one day, and hopefully, DealMachine continues on. So, let's say it will get passed on or something like that at some point. But we've been at it 8 years, and so it's always been a passion of mine to serve people that are on the same exact journey that I was and am. Right? It's like to get financial freedom. So that's the best business that I would actually want to be in. It's not just serving the general public like by owning Walmart, but it's like serving people who want to make a difference, who want to fight for their own financial freedom and making their lives better. So yeah, there's not like a specific date or like a certain time that I have in mind. But I do know and hope to have created something that would last beyond me. So, in order to do that, of course, else would have to be the owner at some point.
Yeah, I love that, man. I asked because there were some rumors last year that you guys were going to be acquired.
I saw somebody say that and I just didn't know where that had come from.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's very
Somebody
interesting
do
how
that.
things get out there, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
We so one thing we always do, and I mean this is really truly the only extent, we'll talk with like a broker once a year to give an evaluation of our business.
Hmm.
And we always think our own business is very sexy and good and amazing. But somebody who sells and brokers businesses, they'll have like an actual like objective look at
Yeah.
how good your business actually is, you know.
Yeah.
So one of the things we learned is you always hear about like SaaS. It's like they get 10x, return on multiple on their revenue. But that's just not true for us actually, because a lot of our customers are they're more beginner, and so like a SaaS would get like a 10x revenue would have like a retention rate of like a really, really long time. Like
Sure.
enterprise SaaS, they have like a churn rate of like 2% per year. It means like 2% of the user base quits and the rest stays. But for most people coming to DealMachine, a lot of them are starting brand new businesses. And so it's really tough to start a business, right? So
Yeah.
a lot of those people, maybe after 9 months, maybe after a year, maybe they like struggled and it didn't work out, or maybe they want to go like try another type of business. And so we want to serve everybody, work really hard to help them see it's possible if you do the right things. But for that reason, our business wouldn't really get that big SaaS like sexy multiple. That's one of the things we learned by talking to a broker. But they did tell us, hey, you can improve your valuation by increasing obviously retention, but they can kind of pinpoint like what some of those levers are. And ultimately, a good sellable business is a good business to run, frankly,
Yeah.
because then as the business owner, by it being sellable, you're not actually the one doing the work. It can force us from doing the work. And it's so easy as a business owner when you know how to do things to want to jump in and like actually do the work. But you can't do that if you're not leading through the people you've hired. You're not leading at all. You're not a leader because nobody's following you, right? So you've got to lead for somebody to follow you, and you can't do the work because they don't, then they won't be doing anything.
Yeah, man. I like that. I like that. So every time I've talked to you, you've had a smile on your face. You look clean.
Thanks.
You just look happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you do to get yourself ready for business? Like in the morning, what's your routine like?
Yeah. I get up at 6. I'm at the gym at 7. I've got a trainer. Um, and at first it was a trainer that I kind of hired like discipline, right? Because like I paid him and I also had the obligation to meet him at a certain time. Now I get up and work out like even if I'm on a trip, like I don't need that. It's such a big part of my day. But as I've gotten older, it's like awesome to have him re-rack the 12 weights off the leg machine. I don't have to bend over 12 times. And so that's what it's turned into. I've been with him for over 2 years, maybe 3 years now. Um, so yeah, that's what I do. Come home, shower, eat breakfast, and then I just jump on the computer. Yeah, so that's what I do every single morning. I love getting that most important thing done right away instead of putting it off, because sometimes the day can get out of hand and you
Yeah.
don't do the most important thing, which as a business owner, you got to serve yourself before you serve others.
Yes.
Meaning, if you don't get a good night's sleep, if you're not taking care of your health, if you don't feel good, then you're not going to be able to pour into other people. Just not, right? It's like put on your own oxygen mask first before you help someone else on the plane. So that's why I think that stuff that I do in the morning is the most important thing.
Love it, man. I feel like that's important too. And it's obviously working for you. That's why I asked because, I always like to, I look up to you, man. You know what I mean? You're an influence of mine. So I like to see what my people are doing. I want to live happier and live better. So that's awesome. When do you find time to race cars?
So I went on 15 trips this year, and it's usually like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Mm,
You practice 2 days and then you'll race. And these are tracks that I haven't been to. So those practice days are like really important because you need to go as fast as possible without crashing, right? So the way you
yeah.
do that, you slowly build up. So as much practice time as I can get, the better. So typically, we'll try to get all the work done so I don't have to work on those days when I go on those trips. But I kind of plan them out a year in advance. They're on my calendar. That way, no meetings get scheduled there, right? Stuff
Yeah.
gets fit in the rest of the time. So I think that's a good strategy as well, is kind of put your most important stuff on the calendar that you want to get done that year before anything else gets scheduled. And that's how I was able to make some time to do that this past year, which was really fun.
Yeah, man. I don't know any other people that do that. Is that something that you've always been interested in? Have you always been a car guy?
No, I was having a really stressful time back in 2019. Like 9 apps came out, and basically feature wise, they did the same thing as DealMachine. So I was pretty
Yeah.
stressed. I think maybe only like one or two of them are around today. So luckily, like, our brand held true. And thank you very much for your loyalty as well. And and the good thing is it's kind of hard to make technology that works and scales well. Uh, Too, right? It's like it does seem like it could be easy, but we've certainly learned a lot, and I think that gave us some advantage. You get a head start on that. But anyway, I was stressed out in 2019. My friend Gary invited me to race a 24-hour race in a $500 car, and I said, "Yeah, it sounds really awesome," but I had no idea like anything of that nature. The first time I drove the car was during the race. I was the second driver of this really long race, so. It was completely consuming. I couldn't think about work or anything that was stressing me out because you're just totally focused on driving as fast as possible, keeping safe distance from everyone else, and staying as alert as possible to make sure you don't crash. So it was just a really refreshing thing. I know Elon Musk just said this about he's like the top 20th Diablo player in the world. So at that level, like it requires so much focus, he can't think about work anywhere,
Yeah.
and I found that to be refreshing. And when he said that, it really resonated with how I felt driving that car. So got done with that race. I waited for Gary to invite me again, but he didn't. So a couple years went by and I didn't get the invite because Gary was too busy with other stuff. So I just kind of took things into my own hands and found a driving school and signed up and went to it. And then, from there, I found like a local club that had Miatas you could race against each other locally. And then I got kind of the next car level up, and we go to some really great travel tracks. And so that's how I got into it.
Oh, that's so cool, man. That's you got such a crazy story. You really do. I mean, you're a CEO of Deal Machine, you race cars. I mean, you find time to stay fit. So yeah, man, it looks like we're running out of time here. I just, before we go, I want to let everybody know that I have been using Deal Machine since the beginning. It has made me so much money and brought me so many deals. If you're not on Deal Machine, you can go in the description and, click my link for the free trial. And you're going to love it. I'm telling you. You will, if you stay consistent, definitely driving for dollars and utilizing that app, you're going to do well. Is there anything else that you would like to say before we bounce off here?
I would just say, like, again, if somebody's listening, they're trying to start out, like, don't quit too soon. That's the biggest thing I see people do is they'll add 10 properties and they'll say, oh, this didn't work for me. But I mean, how many properties do you need to mail or call before you get a deal, Travis, would you say?
How many mailers did you say?
Yes, or calls.
So calls wise, I mean, it's really going to be dependent on your market, but in a smaller market like I'm in, I can literally send out 1,000 mailers and get a deal. I can make 5,000 calls, it doesn't take a lot. But the biggest part when you're calling is just to make sure you know what you're saying to people,
Yeah.
you know?
But somebody who just starts out, I know it doesn't seem like a lot to you, but somebody who just starts out and they hear 1,000 no's will
Yeah.
give up. And that's my message is like
Yes.
talk to somebody like Travis in your market that does really know how many calls it takes, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I don't want them to quit too soon is to hear that little piece of
Awesome.
information.
Yes, man. I appreciate you, David. Thanks for getting on here. Hopefully I
Thank
can
you
have you
so
back
much,
on in the
man.
future.
Absolutely.
All right, man. Thank you. You have a good day. I'll talk to you later.
All right, you too. Bye.
All right, man.
Thank you,
Bye.
man. Really appreciate it.
Hey, no problem.